To celebrate the 1K views reaching halfway to reviewing the rest of Season 1, I've decided to look back at my initial video and gauge its success. Now, I did get some things wrong, however. Know that these things were not appointed to me through YouTube, nor the Redditard who posted it on the official ReZero subreddit. To briefly clarify, my goal with the original is to reach a complete 2K views on the Rant video, which will now include this one into the account. I only ask this time to hold off on your comments until after watching the video. I will begin with the comments from my side of the video, and on my editors, then into Reddit since that's how I came across them. I don't know where to begin with this, but both on my end and my editor's end could not find the comment Bob here is referring to. This is how I initially responded to it. Quote, "A less obnoxious and aggressive version of my other comment. I checked and I didn't see your other comment, but even then, reading what little I have here, it feels pretty obnoxious. Can't say what you've shared here is of any use since it seems you've missed the point of it. It got a reaction out of you, which is what it is intended to do. That way I can gauge how people would respond to it and see if the rest of the show is even worth diving into. Pretty plain and simple. After all, it was merely a wall of text, but actually taking the time to read it, I've noticed a few things. Not necessarily the poor order of points and sentence structure, but rather the lack of any substance to it. By that, I mean there isn't much here that tells me what he disliked about the video or what he liked about the show. He just spewed information, which is boring, though it is amusing he got offended that I called Subaru a simp, of which remains true since the posting and thus far into the watch of Season 1. There's a bunch of weird assumptions about how I'd respond to his alphabet soup, but there's more. Finally, something in English. Shame you had to copy my words just to write something legible. I never said anything about being unbiased, and if you haven't noticed, it's a rant video about episode 1. My disregard about the opinions of others was to set off comments just like this. It worked wondrously. The only shame here is that Bob kept deleting his comments and posting them sporadically like this. Oh yeah, he responded to himself and reposted his comment. Now, there are a few differences between the two, but most notably, he is a lot more frustrated with how I replied to him. Unfortunately, since he deleted his comments, I couldn't find my own comments since YouTube stores comment information based on whether or not the original post is still there. As you guys can tell, he was at a loss for words. Now, to address a few things from this thing that at least one other guy did appoint this comment to. I did not and will never fucking read the light novel ReZero's anime is based off of, nor will I be covering Season 2. A few quotes, since I don't think anyone really wants to read this thing. Quote, "I don't care if you enjoyed ReZero, but if this video is filled with bias and misinformation, what I wrote was to make you or people who have watched ReZero understand it." That's clearly a lie. This guy cared about my enjoyment of the show. If the comments were intended for viewers or fans of ReZero, I severely doubt they would rely on Bob's knowledge, since my video covered episode 1 exclusively. Anyone who has watched past episode 1 could easily identify the issues I had when watching it, something I'll be addressing in the Season 1 video. Quote, "But you said it didn't work as a mystery. You said it didn't have enough information. You missed the point. You're biased. You don't know how to take feedbacks or criticism. You do not know how to make criticisms. You spread misinformation. You do not understand that not everyone can enjoy the same thing, and you should stop watching it because it did not match your preference." The last two, I swear. If you want a summary of your what happened, here it is. I did not enjoy it. Explains points and talks about things that make no sense or can be explained by saying you do not like this type of story. I'm not some future predicting prophet, but I'll make a guess anyway.
You missed the point of my video. Shut the fuck up.
This is how I responded to that comment.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
Bob sadly deleted this comment. I am against censoring the comment section because of shit like this that make me laugh. The only thing I did not like was how this guy kind of spammed his comments on both of our channels, and that's all I've told him. Just try not to spam or say something against the terms of service, and we're all good. But upon hearing my video somehow got spread onto the ReZero subreddit, we see a familiar face. Bob lied to the guy that posted it, and if I'm honest, is a scumbag. He did not once address my points from the video, instead just regurgitating things that happened in episode 1. I skimmed over it in the video for the sake of time and my internet connection being severely slow. Something any of the Redditards could have easily called out was a lack of elaboration in the points I did make, but at no point did I ever threaten Bob's YouTube account. That's fucking stupid. I even told him that comments like this were useful for helping the video reach people. Thankfully, there is one comment of him you can find still public from him. This being on my editor's channel in response to another user. Yet the reason his explanation fell on deaf ears is that he kept deleting what he said. I take issue with the parts of the video no one outside of myself and my editor mentioned about a week after the video was posted on both of our channels. The segment mentioning in video only, Digibro explaining why Suru is autistic, I don't think was necessary. Because aside from him, I couldn't really find anyone else who thought he was. Now, for some constructive criticism, I have to give it to Bootman from Discord. He single-handedly gave me what I needed to hear and inadvertently saved a script I had been working on for months. He pointed out things that frankly could have used either a better explanation or proper elaboration points ranging from the gore to integral information, as I called it. But the important one that stands out is how I failed to note how bloated and shallow the dialogue was. The reason why I couldn't properly show it, aside from time constraints, was the risk of the video using dialogue from the show would block it worldwide. In hindsight, I should have noted the odd dialogue choices to help back that up, because there are at least 5 I could and will be referencing in the Season 1 video, don't you worry. As seen here, not all interactions were hostile, nor were they negative. It's comments like these that I appreciate the most. QB here understood I had a rough time watching it and to press onward, as well as mentioning that fanbase has actually ruined it for some people trying to watch it. He also hopes my views change. And Pierre's comment, as well as Warwick's here, really gave me the courage to endure the absolute cringe fest of Subaru being the obtuse otaku he is. It also gave me perspective on why people could really get into the series, which is greatly appreciated. But back to QB for a second, since he did say something over on Reddit, where he was kind enough to share my upload of the video. To clarify again, not likes, views.
And show me through hitting either the like or dislike button and get this video up to 20k, and I'll sit through the rest of Season 1 and properly dissect each episode.
I am not entirely sure how he concluded likes, but those are nice to have too, I suppose. Sadly, I do not have the community feature, which would have been quite handy to help clarify this sort of thing rather than make an entire video talking about it. The reason I was polite to his comment was because it was non-hostile and was clear to read. The only shame here is he didn't provide what I had actually said. Now for something completely different. We got a repost, gentlemen. Now, I couldn't tell you if the dude stole it from the Reddit post or if he's the same guy who posted it. What guy here doesn't seem to understand how arguments lose credibility, nor how to counter an argument. Valid criticism can exist in a bad video, but the only way that criticism becomes invalid is if there is a contradiction, and I've yet to see any from this post. You didn't have to make this post, nor repost it onto YouTube. So let's begin with your first point. Tone is more important than the information present in episode 1, which is laughable. Quote, pace creates tone, end quote, is simply not a true statement.
pace on its own does not create tone. Tone is made visually by the actions taken or the words spoken to transition from one event to the next.
I asked specifically to spare the time wasting away in the comment section, since this is merely episode 1. A better way to have hand-waved my video would to have mentioned some examples from it. The first episode doesn't necessarily establish tone. It sets up the fact that our protagonist is made of butter and returns each time he's been made into an omelet.
Sacrificing pace means you halt the story's progression, which actually does happen throughout Season 1 each time Subaru resets. Building up tone is meaningless if the suspense present holds no narrative weight, which is often the case when Subaru screws up, leading to, you guessed it, another reset.
The comment about isekai being unrealistic, having the protagonist running right after being summoned, is a strange one, considering all Subaru does in episode 1 is run around trying to find the woman he assumes summoned him to this world to be its hero. As far as I've seen it, many isekai protagonists adapt pretty quickly to the worlds they are summoned to, barring the example of Naofumi Iwatani. If you've seen episode 1 of Shield Hero, you'd know why. But to be quick, Naofumi wasn't as big of a gamer compared to the others summoned with him. Not only clueless, he had to learn a lot about the world he got sent to the hard way. But to the final point that this and various others got wrong about the video, and a failing on my end, it isn't necessarily about being constantly fed information. In fact, there's a lot of information that gets established in episode 1 that remains important throughout the season. However, what annoys me is that what I wanted to know was locked behind episode 2. Specifically, a proper goal rather than a task or a side quest, as Subaru had put it. His tasks in episode 1 were aid Amelia in retrieving the insignia and preventing her death. But when episode 2 rolls, it is made more clear what his goal would be to gain Amelia's trust. That was all I fucking wanted to see in episode 1. But instead, we meander on events that lose importance after Subaru successfully completes his mission. Because at the point of episode 2, we learn a rather contradictory situation in which Subaru's time-hopping adventure here doesn't perfectly align when returning by death. I think if we got that established in episode 1, it would have been a lot better. A proper elaboration will be made for the review since we only got a few more comments to cover.
So they hate the fact Subaru is a good protagonist.
A weird thing about this comment being on my editor's channel, the thoughts expressed were purely my own. It was not entirely shared with my editor, though he hates Subaru for being what he's described to me as the cringe you'd see from any otaku. I don't think for a second the Subaru is a good protagonist in the measurements I have available to me. I just don't like Subaru as a protagonist. How was that not clear? In episode 1, I'd say he is at his most obnoxious point in how he expected things to be handed to him, some of which did get handed to him on a silver platter for free. An example being the location of the loot house. You would think it would have cost him something to gain that information. Whether or not he properly matures, I'll have to see when reviewing the episodes as a whole.
Since you preventively hand-waved any rebuttal, I'll just be content and call your rant absolutely and utterly brain-dead and move on.
Probably one of the better commenters out there, straight to the point. Looking back, I really should have worded it better than to just cause heat, since it sort of robbed me of better interactions. Dude's funny at least.
Character, not plot-driven story.
I don't think we have good enough characters to carry the story they're trying to tell. But even so, episode 1 is way too early to determine if there's any point to Subaru's summon. I like Rom, but I feel like he won't be returning for a while.
Why do so many people hate this show? I don't get it.
You and me both. I haven't seen too many people really show dislike or disdain, but certain they are out there. I mean, I did see Vosh made a video talking about it, but sure, Vosh is fat enough to be considered a lot of people. But I doubt anything he says about the show is either truthful to the discussion or worth listening to.
From IMDb, 3 questions from episode 1s1 Spiller No one. Why Subaru was excited when he got transported into another world. Read more. Amelia saves Subra, and you forgot to mention what Subra did before that. Read more.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news bears, but recapping episode 1 is not my job. Something Bootman mentioned to me was that I didn't necessarily need to recap everything word for word, just to accurately describe and provide an example of my criticism that backs up my points. Something I'll be better about when not only making the ReZero Season 1 video, but also future videos that discuss criticism no matter what it is. Though I think for video games that'll be a bit easier compared to anime.
These two guys want every single important plot point completely explained to them in the first episode. You can talk about how unlikable Sub is, but never even consider the fact that this is 100% what the author intended. After all arcs must start at the lowest point.
There are several things wrong with this comment, and I'm not sure where to begin. While I did address that we don't necessarily need every plot detail, what we do need is something to drive the plot forward. Since ReZero is unique in the sense it is a time-looping story which kind of kills the momentum in some scenes. I only need the rules and groundwork for the characters to function, like any other media out there. Which we do after 3 hours post-episode 1. I have plenty of reason to dislike Subaru, from how he talks to his attitudes and the many moments in which common sense is not present. Doesn't matter if the author intended him to be shit. His character introduction just annoys me. I can't take much gratification in his deaths either because of how much this baby-back bitch keeps coming back. All arcs do not start at their lowest fucking point. You're just stupid if you think that.
ReZero is the one piece of ice cream, my guy. It's long and it's a tale to tell. The fact you dislike Sub indicates good writing. The fact you could already reach the conclusion just proves my point.
Shut the fuck up! Know your fucking place, trash!
That is a massive slant at One Piece and its monolithic scale. I knew people held it high, but to be on par with One Piece? Get out of here with that shit. When I saw this, I was at a loss for words. Season 1 is considered a prologue. If you look at One Piece, as this guy praises ReZero, One Piece established everything it needed and brought about mysteries that even today remain an enigma. I already figured out who summoned Subaru by episode 7, which wasn't too difficult to know, yet Subaru does not. My dislike for Subaru was not a good sign for trekking through the remainder of Season 1. It only gets worse the more I watch, which concerns me as for how I will ultimately conclude both Season 1 and the audience it garnered.
He made a follow-up video later admitting he was biased as shit and saying he'll continue to watch the series and it might change his view. Bothered by the fact he just gave a childish rant without even trying to understand the show. According to him, he made this right after he watched the episode.
Instead of trying to lie and shit talk on Reddit, why couldn't you just say you didn't like the video? This guy, however the hell he found my video, I'm disappointed to say I expected better. But frankly, all it has done is paint a rather bloody picture of the fans who enjoy the show more than I could ever know. Because I take no issue with those who enjoy it for what they get out of it. If not for people like Steven, I probably would have never considered looking any further into ReZero and just conclude it was never good. Though I am thankful to say on both the warning of not continuing into the director's cut, but also expressing what he got out of it. Steven didn't need to be as respectful as he was, since my video was in part meant to troll people. And now, onto my own failings with the video. There isn't much, but I feel is necessary that not many pointed out the objective failures in the comment sections. A bulk of the constructive feedback came from Bootman, but some of which from my editor, ranging from sections of the video being visually dull to not doing more with the points I did make, all of which is fair, and I feel some disappointment with it. Even when sharing my video with a friend, he noted something I hadn't noticed until sometime after it was produced. My audio quality was terrible. How did none of you point that out? The reason I never noticed this problem is due to how my laptop speakers are at a point of being difficult to use. So I instinctively always had videos set to a lower volume to compensate its age. Having finally found my missing microphone, I won't be using the rather quiet headset I had used for the Rant video. No one really pointed out how awkward and weird the Digibro section was either, which was frankly fuel to mock and ridicule. Though I suppose that's hard to find since the majority of people who decided to watch the video were Redditors. The biggest problem with the video as it stands is that, with most of my assertions, they do not carry the examples needed to back them. Aside from Subaru's antics, which no one denies his simp and baby bitch tendencies, I did a few smaller characters dirty. Rom is one of them, who I presumed his name had an A but doesn't. The thing I liked about him was how he was the only character in episode 1 whose speech mannerisms I felt were natural. I think I would have also cut down on reusing footage and instead took the opportunity to roast some things that I will be calling attention to in the full review. All of this is to say, it has been a learning experience. While I still stand by most of what I had said in the rant, there are some things I wish to have better expressed than others, and cut the parts that ultimately didn't matter. Since episodes 2 and 3 mend most of the issues I took with episode 1 while enhancing others, I hope to make better use of my time with each episode's faults and understand what all the fuss is about. Because after season 1, I do not think I'll be covering anything related to it again unless the demand is quite extreme for some odd reason. The view goal for season 1 review was originally 20k views for the rant video. Now it has been reduced to 2,000 views, with this video also being accounted for that view count. So please, I ask that you leave a comment and share the video around. I'd like to see some differing perspectives and experience that might end up in the review if it's interesting enough to include. I only ask that in the comment section you don't harass or spam others. If I can't cringe and laugh at my past, how else am I going to move on and improve? My name is Scott. Until we meet again, good night.